your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. It's a friendship like no other. Two small southern Alberta families never expected their connection, both on and off the ice rink, would lead to a life-saving organ donation for a lucky 13-year-old teenager in Strathmore, Alberta. As Angela Stewart explains, the families are very thankful that they found each other.
It's a common bond between two Strathmore mothers. Both daughters a part of the same ringette team. The rink is where their connection formed and a friendship between one another was built. But for these moms, their bond goes far beyond anything either of them ever expected.
I have to get my weight and my blood pressure taken. I also have to take about 4 pills in the morning too.
It's become a part of his daily routine. At 13 years old, Cale Cumming has become dependent on dialysis, spending about 21 hours a day hooked up to a machine because he needs a new kidney.
So we've kind of known that this would come to a point that he would need a new kidney, but he's done fairly well over his lifetime, has been in and out of the hospital for the last 13 years.
And finding a donor for Cumming didn't take long. A former manager of his big sister's ringette team stepped up to the plate to try and donate her kidney.
How can we help this family? They're close friends, and why wouldn't you give him all the chances possible?
And it just so happens Briggs is a match.
It's amazing. I never thought anyone would do anything like that for me and stuff.
I fully believe everybody's meant for great things in their life, and now Cale gets the chance to do that, right? To go and explore and be and do.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a whole new life ahead of me.
For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
And we are happy to report that Cale will be receiving his new kidney on February 7th. It's wonderful news. A new program from the Alberta government is offering up to $600 in affordability payments over 6 months. This includes seniors and Alberta parents with young kids who are hurting due to the rising cost of living. Not everyone is eligible for the payments, however, including post-secondary students. Staff from the University of Lethbridge Students' Union told us they're frustrated as they too are facing higher costs specifically for schooling.
I really think that inflation has been a huge component to whether or not students are choosing their next meal, choosing to take an additional class, or maybe stay in 3 to maintain their part-time student status. And we're seeing this already with the increased usage of our food bank. Already we have given out hundreds of hampers, and just in January alone, we have met numbers that would have been exceeded maybe in the middle of March. So this is a growing concern, and it's one that really does need to be addressed by the Alberta government, especially recognizing that we are coming into a provincial election year.
Bridge City News reached out to the office of Demetrius Nicolaides, the Alberta Minister of Advanced Education, for comment, but we have yet to hear back. Meanwhile, the University of Lethbridge is doing its part to help support student mental health in a unique way. The REC room was unveiled at the school on Thursday morning to the tune of $100,000. According to officials from the U of L, the area will allow for students to de-stress after a hard day of studying and classes.
We know it's a stressful time for students, and we also know that in order to succeed academically and personally, you need to incorporate factors like play and creativity and social connection into your life. And sometimes, we think that we don't have the time for these things because of, assignment deadlines, but really you don't have the time not to do them because of how they energize you and recharge you and enable you to perform your best.
The REC room will be located in areas like the University Hall Atrium, the Science Commons, and the University Library. And speaking of mental health, the Lethbridge Eagles are hosting their annual Mental Health and Memorial Game next weekend. The team has been putting on the hockey game for the last 2 years after suddenly losing one of their former teammates to a mental health illness. Co-head coach Aaron O'Toole says these types of events are important to not only spread awareness, but to let people know that supports are available.
When you go and you play team sports, and specifically hockey, as a coach, I grew up playing the game, and that support and that camaraderie that you have within that dressing room and on the ice, and how you work together towards a common goal, it's massive. It can create a support network that not only lasts within that season for a handful of months, but for a lifetime. I have friends that I've had for years that get to be in my court and help me through the kind of ups and downs and turbulence of my life. So that conversation within not just sport, but just in general, I think is even vastly more important for our youth.
The Eagles will be hosting Cochrane at Nicholas Sharon Arena on Saturday, February the 4th. After the break, the search for truth and the emails. What's context without the facts or evidence? That plus more provincial news is next. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is demanding an apology and a retraction from the CBC. It's in connection to a CBC article alleging the Premier's office sent a series of emails to the Crown Prosecutor's Office concerning charges related to the Coots border protest and other pandemic-related matters before the courts. A review undertaken by the Alberta Public Service searched for any emails sent to or received by the relevant prosecutors and staff at Premier Smith's office over a 4-month period. Officials say more than 1 million incoming, outgoing, and deleted emails were reviewed, showing no records of contact between the Premier's office and the Alberta Crown Prosecutor's Service. The CBC admitted that it had not seen any of the emails. In a statement, Premier Smith is, quote, calling on the CBC to retract its outrageous story, and further that the CBC and the official opposition apologize to the Premier's office staff, Alberta Crown prosecutors, and those in the Alberta Public Service for the damage caused to their reputations and that of Alberta's justice system. She further goes on to say the CBC's allegations and insinuations are baseless. The CBC responded to the demands in a statement. Chuck Thompson, who is the head of CBC Public Affairs, says they stand by their story, which transparently attributes the allegations to trusted sources and provides context to the allegations. In addition, the Alberta NDP says it's just a cover-up by the Smith government and is calling for an independent investigation into the emails.
Smith's refusal to commission a fully independent investigation strongly suggests that she has something to hide. So today, I'm repeating 2 very simple calls. Danielle Smith must appear in public today and answer questions about her interference in criminal prosecutions. She cannot hide from Albertans forever. Secondly, I'm calling once again on Attorney General Tyler Shandro to commission a fully independent investigation today. He does not need the Premier's permission to do this.
On January 17th, NDP Justice critic Irfan Sabir requested Attorney General Tyler Shandro to commission an independent investigation into the Premier's actions. Thousands of Albertans have been on surgical waiting lists, particularly for orthopedic surgeries, but the province hopes to tackle the backlog by redirecting patients to independent clinics. Alberta Health Minister Jason Copping announced a new contract between the province and Canada's Surgery Solutions that will allow for more than 3,000 hip, knee, and shoulder procedures per year. Copping says that they know that an increase in capacity is desperately needed in the province. Copping also says this is still public and not private health care.
This is no different than you going to see your family doctor, and that's paid through our healthcare system, and it is a private corporation. This is, contracting additional resources to build our system, and we've, as I mentioned on the in regards to ophthalmology, we've already had success. Right, getting the wait times down, building more capacity, and because that's all that they do, they get very, very efficient at it. So because of that efficiency, we look at the ophthalmology contracts, for example, roughly 20% savings for surgery, so we can actually reinvest to do more surgeries associated with that.
The health minister this week also discussed how the province is addressing the rural physician shortages. Copping says part of the plan will include exploring ways that post-secondaries, including the University of Lethbridge and Northwestern Polytechnic in Fairview, can help deliver medical education outside of Edmonton and Calgary.
And this is just one part of a much larger picture of how we are addressing workforce challenges, particularly physician shortages in rural areas. One of the goals of our healthcare action plan is to create a healthcare system that attracts more healthcare professionals to Alberta. So work is continuing on multiple fronts. Through our new agreement with the Alberta Medical Association, there are financial increases for family physicians and targeted spending on rural physician recruitment and retention. The agreement includes over $750 million in new funding to stabilize the health system, $260 million in new spending over 4 years for communities and specialities facing recruitment and retention issues, and $40 million in lump sum increases to support primary health care.
In other news, a woman walking her dog west of Devon, Alberta, made an unusual discovery. Stacey Long found what turned out to be a massive fossilized bone that likely belonged to an Ice Age mammoth. Long says the giant bone, which she first thought was a piece of wood, was jutting out of a riverbank. A Royal Alberta Museum paleontologist says the bone is believed to be a mammoth shoulder blade that is thousands of years old. After the break, a community seeks justice for a newborn baby. Keep it right here.
One of the news ladies who came today, she cried. That meant something to me, to have a news lady cry. She hears a lot of things, but this hurt her.
Welcome back. Many of our viewers were shocked at the news when Lethbridge police announced they had charged 2 parents in connection with the abuse of a 6-week-old baby girl. An investigation determined the infant had been assaulted and sexually assaulted many times. She remains in critical condition in the Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary. A candlelight vigil was held Monday evening by the members of the Lethbridge community, and BCN's Naveen Day was there and filed this report.
All the love, all these people, heal.
A small child begins the evening with a prayer. Then candles are lit to an emotional a cappella version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. This is how the evening began at a candlelit vigil held Monday in support of a weeks-old newborn who is fighting for her life. A sizable crowd came out and organizers took donations for the baby, hoping to be able to send hope, prayers, and resources for when the newborn is out of emergency care. One of the organizers, Kathleen Lacombe, says many members of the community were distraught at the news and reported to her that hearing it opened up old wounds for them.
This evening I had a woman come up to me who came here to the vigil and thanked us for putting it on. I mean, this is just something we're all doing, but it meant something to her because she broke down and cried on my shoulder tonight because she is a victim, a survivor. And sorry, that's emotional for me. The police officers expressed to me today their pain, how they're hurting. One of the news ladies who came today, she cried. That meant something to me, to have a news lady cry. She hears a lot of things, but this hurt her.
Lacombe adds she is in talks with Victim Services Alberta to collect impact statements from members of the community. The parents, a 52-year-old male and 31-year-old female, were remanded to custody following judicial interim release hearings.
Now, those parents of that infant girl were scheduled to make a court appearance for a bail hearing on Wednesday morning, but the hearing was remanded to Friday for disclosure. BCN's Naveen Day was at the courthouse Wednesday where a number of protesters gathered outside.
I arrived at the Lethbridge courthouse shortly before 9 in the morning, and there already was a significant number of protesters on site. Now, one thing that you'll notice is how specific the signs are. They're not saying anything vague like justice for baby. A lot of them are very specific. They want to see bail denied, and they want the stiffest of penalties to be applied to this couple, who are a 52-year-old male and a 31-year-old female. In fact, one of the signs reads, "Where's the attempted murder charge?" So the idea is not just to make noise, but to send a specific message to the judge and the Crown. Now, this rally was put together by an Edmonton-based group called Dads on Guard, and according to the organizers, this case is personal.
By my survivor from child sexual assault, hearing about this story, it really hit my heart. You know, the fact that someone who's put in that position of authority and trust of that child could take that vulnerability from the child and completely ruin their life before they even had a chance to have one. It just breaks my heart.
I came out after 40 years, and I find that with bringing out my voice, a lot of other men are coming forward, and that was our whole goal, is to have more people come forward and let everybody know like what's happening in society. And I mean, we got to put a stop to it. We have to do something. The minimum mandatory for distribution and manufacturing child pornography here is only 12 months. These guys are getting 8 months, and then they're released, usually under a publication ban. That's a slap on the wrist. These victims are having lifelong consequences.
That was Dads on Guard, a group formed in 2021.
The two accused, who cannot be identified due to a publication ban to protect the infant's identity, are being charged separately. The father faces charges of aggravated assault, sexual contact with a child, and failing to provide the necessaries of life, while the mother faces one charge of failing to provide the necessaries of life. As of Friday morning, the father has obtained a lawyer through legal aid, and the mother's lawyer, John Oman, requested to have her court appearance adjourned until February 3rd. Both parents remain in custody at the Lethbridge Correctional Center with a court appearance scheduled for February 3rd. The Crown remains opposed to release. Up next, I speak with a member of Southern Alberta's Blood tribe who's been quoted by the Supreme Court of Canada, has been influential in a United Nations declaration and changing the Constitution of Canada. He's also grateful to the University of Lethbridge. Find out why after the break. Welcome back. Earlier this week, I spoke with Dr. LeRoy Littlebear, who was the first Indigenous person to influence a Supreme Court of Canada decision. He's been influential in a United Nations declaration, changed the Constitution of Canada, and influenced the lives of thousands of students. He shared with me how the University of Lethbridge has impacted his life and why he believes our local university ranks in the top 6% of the world. Here's Dr. LeRoy Littlebear.
My response to that is that the university has its foundational base as liberal education. Liberal education gives you a broad base to draw from.
Sure.
Okay. As opposed to, specialization. Mm-hmm. Say. So specialization is great if you want to know something really in depth. But generally speaking, what happens then is when you specialize too much, you might know everything within your specialty, but not much outside of the specialty. Mm-hmm. See, but a liberal education gives you a broad overview, which means you can come up with creative new ideas drawing on different parts of different foundational bases. See. Yeah. And I think that's what really is important about how University of Lethbridge brings about knowledge and education to its students.
How do you see the work that you've done and the leadership that you've had as bridging the gap between cultures, not just at the university, but also on a national level?
Well, I see this as being given the opportunity. In other words, it wasn't just me. Well, there were leaders, for instance, Sam Smith that I referred to, and other presidents throughout the university that have given me and others the opportunity to come out and perform, so to speak, and play out this development, give ideas and so on. Hey, we've got an idea. Do you think this is something worthwhile we can do? And yes, you know, they've jumped on, and Indigenous studies and all the happenings now on campus are blossoming and so on. But it's being given the opportunity.
Was it Isaac Newton that coined the phrase "standing on the shoulders of giants"? So there might have been some giants that positioned you to have the view of the future, your future possibilities for your life. So can you talk about the individuals that provided you with an ability to see what your future could be like?
Yes. Well, when I was young, and let's say I was living on a reserve, grew up there. I went to school there, residential school. But I did have my older relatives, elders that gave us guidance. My uncle Bernard, for instance, I spent many times, many days with him. And one of the things in his advice was, he said, I don't have any education. All the work that I do is sweat at the brow, breaking your back, hard labor type of work. Okay. I want you to go to school so that the way he put it was, you'll get paid for your thoughts.
I like that.
And yeah, but his caveat was, don't forget your people. That's the way he put it. And I've always operated by that advice.
We'll have more of my conversation with Dr. LeRoy Littlebear next week. After the break, parents who want more involvement in the education of their children. That's next. Keep it right here. Education is not a one-size-fits-all solution. I recently spoke with Jeff Park of the Alberta Parents Union, who shared that many Alberta parents are looking for a better education option for their children. Have a look. Jeff, based on feedback from parents, what are you hearing right now about the Alberta education system?
Sure. I think the last 3 years have been a real eye-opener for a lot of parents. They saw a lot more of the content or lack thereof that their kids were learning when everything went to Zoom. And so there is a lot of appetite for change, both in the traditional system and outside of it. And that's one of the main things I'm hearing is a lot of people that are now expecting to be more engaged in their child's education than they were before.
Okay, so do you think that maybe teaching models have changed and that's led to this more negative impression or maybe a negative outcome of a student's experience in public school?
So I did a tour of all of Alberta and what was down in Lethbridge, Pincher Creek, Tabor, and Medicine Hat, relevant to the southern part where you guys are based, and all over the rest of the province. And I did hear pretty consistently that it seems like for people who have a big gap between their kids or grandparents who put their kids through school and now are putting their grandkids through school, they say there is a big difference between, say, before about 2011 and now in just the focus on the basics in school.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith had originally talked about implementing what some are calling micro schools, and some parents say that this is an attractive idea for them and they're doing very well in the United States. Can you maybe explain what a micro school is?
Sure. A micro school or learning pod, hybrid education, it goes by a couple names. These are parents getting together on their own and hiring one or a very small handful of teachers to deliver education directly in the old one room schoolhouse style, really, and sometimes these children will be across several grades, or they'll be working on different things, micro schooling or learning pods, and unschooling that you mentioned at the top pair very well together, and we've seen a lot of those pop up, especially in the States. So we would encourage there to be, because one of the issues is that I've heard independent schools say over and over again that the number of regulations on independent schools has been increasing, so that they actually have to be larger than even some of them would like to be able to support a staff to keep up with all these regulations and reporting requirements and so forth. And so we would love to see legislation that would create a new category for learning pods that wouldn't apply all the same regulations that apply to all Alberta schools now, including independent schools, so that we can see a smaller option. Because right now, with the amount of government mandates on anything called a school, we can't see schools below a certain size.
I did see on your website that you actually have an online petition going to implement a voucher system. So what are the benefits in your mind for a child's education within a voucher system?
That it puts parents back in the driver's seat instead of educrats in Edmonton. That we have a great system already because of the level to which money is allowed to follow the child in our system already. But it is from the educrats down how that money following the child is determined. Whereas we believe that, again, parents are the real experts in their own children's education. If you give that money to parents and let them decide where it goes, then that is a superior system. It will lead to much more innovation.
When we return, could the condition of our gut affect our brain health and the diseases that impact senior citizens? Well, a researcher from the Department of Neuroscience at the University of Lethbridge shares with us innovative research on just that. We'll be right back.